Welcome back to B&B Movie Reviews. This week, we'll take a deep dive with The Whale, dance with Whitney Houston, make a wish with Puss in Boots, and become something bigger than ourselves with Babylon. Don't go anywhere, B&B is coming up next.
She saved him. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She was trying to help him.
Who are you talking about?
He's going home. She did that.
Charlie.
She didn't do it to hurt him. She did it to send him home. Do you ever get the feeling that people are incapable of not caring? People are amazing.
Charlie, a 600-pound recluse, believes that people are amazing even after they enable his bad behavior, verbally abuse him, and use him for his money in Darren Aronofsky's latest film, The Whale. Brad.
Yes?
This movie, okay, let me start by saying this was a film that I kind of went into, and look, when we go into movies, I try to go in with an unbiased opinion and unbiased expectations.
You're very good about that.
For the most part, but for whatever reason, I kind of went into this movie kind of with my arms crossed, and I was not really open to kind of like being a part of this film, but I was like, okay, I've heard great things about Brendan Fraser's performance. Let me go in with an open mind. And there are certain aspects that I think work in this movie, but overall, man, I gotta say, this movie just didn't really work for me.
So I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
And I had the exact same experience. This was the last movie I watched of the year because it was the last movie I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
I love Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
I think he has made some of the most entertaining and enjoyable movies. Encino Man, Bedazzled, Blast from the Past,
George of the Jungle.
George of the Jungle, the Mummy films,
There you
right?
go, yeah.
I adore Brendan Fraser, and I
Yeah.
love to see where he is going now in his career with Doom Patrol and No Sudden Move. And
Yeah.
he's incredible in The Whale. He is so good in The Whale. He deserves all the praise.
He really does.
However,
Yeah.
this movie is brutal, and I don't know if I trust Darren Aronofsky to tell this kind of film in the first place.
Yeah.
It leads to something. Does it earn that something?
Well, that's the thing, because they really want to focus. The movie really wants to focus on this relationship between Charlie and his daughter, and the
Played by
relationship.
Sadie Sink from
Stranger
Yeah.
Things, and she's really good. She's a great young actress, but that relationship, and I think it's more about how that character is written, not really going into her performance. But I mean, she doesn't like her father. And she doesn't
like anything.
She doesn't.
That's like core to her character, is that she is filled with anger and rage towards the world around her.
She's mean. She's evil, if I could say that. And
Someone calls her evil, and at that point in the movie, when they said like she is evil, I was like, wait, is she like true evil? Are we going true evil with the whale? And for a moment, I thought we were, and I was a little interested.
Yeah.
And then no, we back away from that a bit.
So none of that stuff really works because, like you were saying about the ending I don't feel is deserved because we don't really get that resolve between Charlie and his daughter, but it comes literally at a split second right at the end of the movie.
And the movie is paced with a slug's pace, right? It is agonizing because of all the dark, painful, hurtful emotions that Brendan Fraser character is exploring.
Yeah.
And it is compelling, but also I found points in this movie where I was like taking my glasses off. I was like, I just can't look at the screen. I can't look at the screen. I need to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Please take me away. But then I will find moments where I was super engaged. Sadie Sink and the New Life missionary character.
Yeah.
that conversation that they had at one point in this movie with a door between them.
That was interesting, and it was going into an interesting place. But then it kind of falls by the wayside, and then ultimately what she does, it's weird because even watching that clip, Brendan Fraser's character is saying, people are amazing because of what she did to help him, but was she really trying to help him?
Is he confused? Is he onto something there with that speech in that clip? I don't know. I'm still wrestling with the ending of this movie, and it leaves you with an image that I found truly beautiful.
Yeah.
And just when I was about to give up on this movie, there was a shot where it took me away.
It did.
And I was moved by it.
It did. And I think the setup of the ending leading to that shot.
Garbage.
Yeah.
I hate the setup to the end.
The setup, but you're saying, but that single shot and what that represents, I think is extremely fascinating with what Darren Aronofsky was maybe trying to go for with this character. But ultimately, I think all the pieces of this movie just kind of fall apart as a whole.
He's a powerful filmmaker, but the point of this movie, if I'm even close to that point, is pretty basic. And I would say that borderline offensive. And maybe take that borderline away.
Yeah, because he goes into this idea of like write something, because he's a professor, he's like write something honest. And I think he's looking for that he's not just speaking to his daughter or to his students, but he's also trying to find something within himself that he's trying to speak honestly about himself. But a lot of that stuff I just don't think really worked as a whole.
And what his weight gain represents, this sort of like self-loathing, this crack at a point in his life where he just descended into despair.
Yeah,
I don't dig it. I don't like
what's your rating for this?
B-.
I'm with you on that. Unfortunately, it's a B-. So, all right, guys, that is our thoughts on The Whale. When we return, we will discuss the new biopic on Whitney Houston. Stay right there.
Here are AARP top tips on caregiver preparedness during coronavirus. Form a team that can help with caregiving tasks. Take an inventory of essential supplies in your loved one's home. Make a list of the care recipient's medications. Schedule regular calls to fight isolation. Finally, take care of yourself too. Follow the Centers for Disease Control's guidelines for coronavirus safety. For more caregiving tips, go to aarp.org/caregiving.
So, I don't feel that they're allowing you to sing strongly enough in this picture so that we understand why your character is such a huge star.
Right.
Okay? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
The songs have to be great in order for the character to be great. So Kevin, your new best friend, found this here. This is Dolly Parton. What?
I like it.
Clive Davis gives Whitney Houston a little inspiration for her next smash hit with Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You. In the new biopic film, I Want to Dance with Somebody. Brian.
Yes.
We don't like music biopics.
No, we
here
don't.
at the B&B show.
No.
We talked about it with the weird Al Yankovic story, although we came out pretty positive about that movie.
Yeah.
Where does this one fall?
You know what? It's so funny because watching this movie, I was thinking about Weird, the Al Yankovic story, and we talk about biopics and how they kind of have a formula. And I think one of the biggest kind of like misfires, I don't want to say atrocities, but is...
We've already broke out the atrocity word?
I know, right?
Oh my goodness.
I think, what was the Freddie Mercury, Bohemian
Rhapsody, who wrote, those people wrote this movie.
Who wrote this film.
And you can tell.
And yes, you can tell. This one I give a little bit more credit because of the director, Casey Lemons. I believe it's Casey Lemons.
Yes.
I like some of the previous films that she's done, and I think that she brings a little bit more with the performances and the pacing and what she tries to dive into as much as she can with a biopic of Whitney Houston. My biggest issue with biopics is that I think they get caught in the trappings of just kind of like recounting events. instead of giving us something deeper
And,
that
yeah.
we don't already know.
We get a lot of that here.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I never really considered myself a Whitney Houston fan, but I'm watching this movie,
Yeah.
and these little moments come up, right? And you're
Yes.
like, oh, I remember that moment. Oh, I remember that award show. Oh, the halftime show. Oh, and then I was
Yeah.
finding myself in a really pleasant place. Like the nostalgia for this film
Yes.
really worked for me, and I thought Naomi Ackie as Whitney Houston was darn good, really powerful.
A lot of performance. She was great. I think Stanley Tucci is always great.
Always good.
But he embodies Clive Davis really well in this movie,
Yeah.
and you really can feel like we always knew about the friendship that Clive Davis had with Whitney Houston, and you feel that in this movie, and I'm glad they really kind of portrayed that in the right way.
The movie does the biopic thing where it opens with a moment, like, she's at the VMAs, the AMAs.
the AMAs, yeah, the American Music Awards, yeah.
She's at the AMAs, it's like 1994. 1994, you
Yep.
got the dates for me, Brian,
Yeah.
thank you. And she gives this performance, and like, oh, we're gonna get this performance, and then we're gonna go back in time.
Yeah.
And we only go back 10 years. And I was surprised that we were just gonna have a movie that was gonna focus on 10 years of her life. But then
Yeah.
the film goes beyond that, and we never come back. We don't have the bookend. I'm going,
No.
what's happening here?
It's interesting though how they play that. It's like they kind of bookend the movie with that performance.
It's a
and-
surprise bookend, though,
But
because we
yeah.
go beyond it, and then we come back to it.
Yeah, we come back after that. So I like the way that Casey Lemons and the production of this film dealt with the pacing of it to really kind of throw you off balance as to telling you what part of her life we're going to tell. Because this is kind of like, a cradle to the grave type of story, for the most part, where we kind of follow her from her beginnings.
Well, I mean, the movie takes us to her end, and Whitney Houston's end is tragic.
It's a very tragic
very
ending.
sad.
It's a very tragic ending.
And it puts us in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And her end is minutes away.
Yeah.
And then that's when we get the bookend.
Yeah.
And it comes after this really kind of sweet and beautiful conversation with
That
the
she
bartender.
has with the bartender down in the lobby, and I thought that was great. And we talked about that, like those two scenes leading into the medley that she performs at the AMAs. I thought was a beautiful way to end this
Because
movie.
I thought we were going to end in the bathroom, and I was devastated. I was broken.
Yeah.
And then we flash back to the AMAs, and we finally see why we bookend the movie with this. And it is the most beautiful
Yeah.
execution of a bookend in a biopic I have ever experienced. The movie is whatever,
And that's the
But to get to that ending,
To get to the ending, the ending is well deserved. But you're right. It's like everything that we deal with, everything that we watch to get to that point is really we're just kind of just going through the motions. Everything feels kind of.
well, it's a recreation.
It's a recreation.
Good recreation.
A good recreation. Some things feel like a parody of themselves. I like, I believe his name is Ashton Sanders, the guy who plays Bobby Brown.
Dude.
But my goodness,
The moment he comes on, I'm cackling.
Yeah.
Because, he's already a character, Bobby Brown, and now you're going to do an impersonation of him?
Yeah.
And he nails it.
He does nail it, but that's when we kind of get into parody mode, when I'm thinking about Weird and everything, and the way that they kind of like hint at and kind of telegraph her addiction, with the slowly she's drinking, then she's smoking marijuana, and then everything. And so it's like they kind of build that from the beginning, but it feels so telegraphed that I can't even really buy into it.
Yeah, but I
in
also
that.
appreciate how they don't wash her sexuality. They have a real conversation about that.
Yeah.
The movie does not shy away from the darker aspects of her life and her horrible end. I give this a B+ because of those last 3 scenes.
I think this is a movie I can recommend, especially if you're a Whitney Houston fan.
Even
So-
if you don't think you're a Whitney Houston fan,
Yeah, I think you'll still enjoy it.
you'll
So,
remember that you actually are a Whitney Houston
Exactly.
fan.
So I give it a B+ as well. Yeah. So those are our thoughts on I Want to Dance with Somebody. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the new film from DreamWorks, Puss in Boots. Stay right there.
Children are spending more time at home. Teachers, parents, neighbors, and friends, it's up to you to keep them safe. Now more than ever, it's important to stay connected. By phone, video chat, and social media. If you have concerns or see changes in a child, be there for them. Ask questions. Seek help. Report suspected child abuse or neglect.
You are not flying. I will save you. Save me too. If it's convenient. You, lunch me. And the rest of you, play double time. Spanish Splinter!
Ooh, that hurts. When the sleeping giant is awakened, it's up to the fearless hero, Puss in Boots, to save the townspeople in DreamWorks' latest animated film, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Brad, this movie was a delight.
I'm so glad you think so.
Even watching this scene, like, that was part of the opening, and the opening of this movie, and we talked a little bit about it, it's just so good in the way it just kind of brings you right into this movie. It's so much energy, it's so lively, and Antonio Banderas, I mean, you can just tell he just falls right. I mean, he's been playing this character since 2002, since Shrek 2.
I want him to play it for the rest of his life.
It's so good. But what are some of your thoughts on this one?
So that opening sequence is an astonishing feat of animation. And the animation in general in this Puss in Boots looks unlike anything else we've gotten from the Shrek franchise. It is paying some kind of respect to what Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did.
I was thinking that too.
And I'm so grateful for that because I think that's one of the best animated films of the last decade, if not longer than a decade.
Yeah.
And I love that they learned a lot of interesting lessons from that movie and applied it to the Shrek world.
I love it. I love the animation style. I mean, we talk a little bit about like how a lot of animation is kind of getting away from some of the traditional like 3D animation that Pixar does. And even though we see like with Shrek and the first Puss in Boots falls into that animation style, they went with something different here. I like, you know, the like kind of like the watercolor painting a little bit. They use the speed lines.
They changed the frame rates up.
They changed the frame rates up. It's really like, it just really gets you into the film, like just seeing how lively the medium, how they use the medium of
So
animation.
it looks gorgeous. It looks original. It's also really funny. And more importantly, incredibly heartfelt. And we get to the end of this film, and Puss in Boots is reflecting on his past lives. This movie opens up with him losing his second to last life, his penultimate life, and now he's on his last one. And now he has to reflect on his mortality. And suddenly I'm in this theater, this kid's film, I'm surrounded by children, and I'm going like, oh my gosh, my end is coming.
But that's the great thing I like about this movie is that is the message and the meaning behind it. Is that whole idea of, you know, you have one life to live, so live it to the fullest. And I love that.
And it's okay to be not happy with what your past lives were. Like who you were doesn't define who you are now.
Exactly.
You can shed your old self.
And talk about the character of Perrito. The dog that, you know, when he goes to the shelter, there's a dog at the shelter that's dressed like a cat. And I found myself really being engaged with his story because you find out that he is this abused dog, but he has such a positive outlook on life. And you look at Puss in Boots because of where he is at this point in his life, and he's so downtrodden, he's got his beard growing, and he's just kind of giving up because he doesn't have his 9 lives. But you look at Perrito, and he's like, it's like, I'm just living life, even though I've gone through this horrific past, I have a great outlook on life.
Yeah, but Perrito doesn't have the Lobo chasing him like Puss in Boots does.
Yeah, which is another great character.
One of the great screen presence, this wolf that represents death. It's the physical embodiment of death.
Yes.
There are sequences where where Lobo appears, and they were terrifying. Like the way that he comes out of the shadows.
With the red eyes.
The kids around me are going to have nightmares for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And guess what? So am I.
And you're right. It's packaged in this movie that's just a lot of fun and is really funny.
I think that It opens incredibly strong.
Yeah.
The first 30 minutes of this movie are near perfect. I do think it drags a little bit with the Goldilocks story and the three bears. It's funny. There is an emotional payoff for all of them that works, but the middle part with them is a little rough. And then little Jack Horner, John Mulaney.
The introduction and those characters are a lot of fun, but they do kind of start to wane on you because we spend a lot of time with them, and that's not the progression of the story that I wanted to see. I wanted to stay with Puss in Boots.
Agreed.
And with I forgot Salma Hayek's character's name.
She's great in it.
But she's good in it. And Perito, I think he is really the heart of the film. So I thought all of that stuff really worked. But yeah, what's a rating you give?
B+.
Yeah, this is close to being it is one of my favorite movies of the year. So it's a B+ for me. Maybe not in my top 10, but definitely.
Favorite animated film of the year?
I think it might be. I don't even see a lot of animation, but it's pretty much
it's in the 5. It's in the 5 for me.
It's up there. So yeah, those are our thoughts on Puss in Boots. When we return, Damien Chazelle is back with Babylon. Stay right there.
Hey you, stop and listen. This is a public service announcement with Dakari Chapman. Why should you know your Constitution, and why should you know your rights as a U.S. citizen? How would you like it if someone didn't allow your club to meet at your house? I wouldn't, because that's not cool. How would you like to be tried without a jury? I wouldn't, because that's not cool. These things are not cool. Learn your rights as a U.S. citizen so you know what to do in these situations. Thanks for listening, and remember, it's an American thing, so learn it.
There's a new sensibility now. People care about morals.
I've never done nothing except disappoint people my whole life. But I made it on my terms, not theirs.
We are going to be more than they ever bargained for.
What I do means something.
It's bigger than you.
What does it mean? What does it cost to become part of something bigger than yourself? Damien Chazelle's new film, Babylon, explores the decadence and the beauty of the early days of Hollywood in the 1920s. Brian.
Yes.
I am so eager to talk to you about this movie. I love it. It's one of my favorite films of the year.
Yeah.
I know it's a challenging film. I know it's a divisive film.
Yes, it is.
Where do you fall?
It's funny, though, because we talked a little bit early in the show about The Whale, and I kind of went into this movie the same way. I kind of went in kind of like with my arms crossed. It's like, okay, I want to go in unbiased, but seeing a movie a little later than people start talking about it, you see that it's become more of a divisive film. So I go into this movie, and it slowly starts to get me.
Does it slow? Babylon doesn't do anything slow.
Well, no, it doesn't, because this is a very excessive, a very aggressive film.
Energetic.
A very energetic film. And maybe I was a little taken back by that at first. And so some parts of this movie had me kind of like rolling my eyes. But then as the movie was going along and seeing what the story was about and what it's trying to say about the golden age of Hollywood and the transition of certain eras of Hollywood, there are moments and vignettes in this movie that I think are just absolutely brilliant.
So what I would say to somebody who is on the fence with seeing Babylon, like, 3 hours and 10 minutes, it's going to be gratuitous and gross and revolting, and that's all true. Okay, you got to prepare yourself. There's an elephant in this, and it's the first scene of the movie, and if you can get beyond the elephant, I think you can get beyond the rest of the movie. Maybe not.
Maybe, I don't know.
But there are sequences in Babylon that make the whole movie worth it. That first hour with the party is riveting. Like, all the pre-title stuff is great.
Yeah.
But then you get to the film shoot, and they go to Kinescope, and we get to see all these little silent movie sets and how everyone is killing themselves, literally, to get these movies made.
Yeah.
And the sun is coming down. We got to get the camera. And the camera's on rent, and it's the sun. We're going to lose it. We're going to lose the magic hour. And when they capture that magic hour, you have to be in the theater to watch this, or you have to. If you're not at the theater, you just got to put yourself in front of that scene because it's amazing.
It's juxtaposed between one film set with Brad Pitt and then Margot Robbie when she's brought into this like the ranch where you have all these different like. And because it's the silent film era, you can have all these different sets, and it's so rambunctious, it's so
it's chaotic.
Yeah. And all these things that are happening. But yeah, as that scene starts to play out and we juxtapose that with between those two scenes and you start to see the sun go down, it's a beautiful moment. Seeing the chaos, but then ultimately what you see through the lens and what they capture, I thought that was just chef's kiss.
Yeah, and there are, I would say, 3 scenes in the movie that must be witnessed. And I think if you love movies, you will find something in those scenes at the very least, even if you don't love the whole movie.
So I want to get to, because we talked about this movie a little bit before, and I want you to talk about your perspective on the ending. So with Damien Chazelle, and I want to tee you up for this. So Damien Chazelle, his filmography, we have Whiplash, La La Land, First Man, and now Babylon. He likes to have these grand endings to his film. You know, of course, with Whiplash, you have the drum sequence at the end, and then you have the what if moment between Mia and Sebastian in La La Land.
He knows how to climax a picture.
Yeah, he definitely knows how to climax a movie, and he does that in this movie, and he does something very interesting that I really was thrilled with, but we talked about this before, and I want you to explain a little bit about what this movie meant as far as like everything leading up to that ending.
Well, my ultimate review for Babylon is that it is a film that wants you, the audience of 2022, to get ready for AI cinema, okay? Artificial intelligence is going to be writing your scripts, it's going to be directing your movies, and this movie is all about transition. You know, it's from the silent to the sound period, right? It's Singing in the Rain. And at the end of this movie, Diego Calva, who is astonishing in this film, is watching Singing in the Rain, and he is seeing all his friends be replicated in that film. He's witnessing his life in Singing in the Rain, and he becomes emotional, he starts crying. The camera pulls out, goes through the whole crowd, comes back to him as Gene Kelly starts dancing in the rain, that iconic moment, and he is overcome with emotion. And now he's gone from like sadness to joy. Yeah. And we get this clip show.
Yeah, it's like a montage.
It's a montage of all the great movies.
Yeah, throughout the history of cinema.
Yeah, you got Wizard of Oz, you got Daffy Duck.
I think they show Stanley Kubrick's 2001.
Yes, and there's a moment in that clip show where the word Finn comes up.
The end.
The end.
Yep.
And then after the end, we start to get clips from digital productions. Tron comes up.
T2.
Jurassic Park. Avatar: The Last Airbender is playing in Babylon.
Yeah.
And Justin Hurwitz's
not
score,
The Last Airbender, just Avatar.
Oh my gosh, should I say Last Airbender?
Yeah,
I meant
just James Cameron's Avatar.
Freudian slip because Last Airbender is better.
Yeah.
James Cameron's Avatar shows up.
Yeah.
And you realize what it's saying is like, the house is always burning.
Yeah.
You're living your life hedonistically because you think it's never going to stop. But the house is burning, as Gene Smart says, and you're trying to hold the spotlight, and you cannot hold the spotlight.
You can't hold it.
The movie, your life is over. The art is always changing. Sound is here. The apocalypse is here. CGI is here. AI is here. Movies will always exist. There will be 1 or 2 or 3 people who will remember you, Douglas Fairbanks.
Exactly.
Not everybody, but somebody will, and will be in love with your image.
Exactly. What do you give this movie?
B+.
It's weird. The more I've been thinking about this movie a lot, and I was on the fence, and I was going to go B-. I think I got to go B+ with this as well. I mean,
I turned you.
But it's a movie that stays with you.
Yeah.
It's a movie that stays with you. So, yeah, those are our thoughts on Babylon. To recap what we discussed today, The Whale, we give a B- for myself and for Brad. I Want to Dance with Somebody, we both give that a B+. Puss in Boots, one of the better animated movies of the year, we give that a B+. And Babylon, the new film from Damien Chazelle, we both, it's a movie that stays with you, but we both give that a B+. So that will do it for this episode of B&B Movie Reviews. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time at the movies.
Thank you.